Looking at watercolors, here an example by Walter Anderson from the Walter Anderson Museum. We see a magnolia that's gone to seed with a couple of seed pods. The prominent pod at the upper left is echoed in the pattern just below at the top of the stem, where we see dark circles rendered with the very point of the watercolor brush. This where the petals would have been attached before the plant went to seed. We can look at the leaves and notice the leaf at right that gently turns in space and shows the underside, the downy side that contrasts in color. Now, we can think about color in this work and notice that Anderson made use of complements. In other words, colors that are very far from one another on the color wheel, colors that are very different, and create a kind of color energy or excitement. We can look to this work, another by Anderson, also in watercolor. You can see how he used pencil to lay in the basic composition rather quickly. Anderson lived on the Mississippi Gulf Coast and would often take trips to a barrier island by rowboat. It was almost like this was his artist retreat. It's said that he slept under his boat, rolled it over, almost like a tent. His imagery sometimes portrays animals that might have been washed up on the beach. So here, a seabird, we can see how he's paying attention to patterns in plumage as well as the webbed feet, the beak, and the teeth of the beak. Here, a live oak tree with a branch that extends outward into space. Notice how the artist used arced marks. The belly of the arc at upper left faces rightward. The belly of the arc in the midsection where the branch reaches down faces downward. And then if we look to the furthest part, if we look toward the right, we can see the portion of the branch that reaches outward and up, and the belly of the arc also is oriented in that direction, giving the cylindrical form of the tree a very vivid quality. And the artist seems to have been in the tree when the painting was made. We can look at the colors and observe that the colors are, once again, complements, opposites on the color wheel, purples and yellows or yellow greens. We can look to yet another watercolor by Anderson, this one more based in line and very delicate detail. And we can see here red oranges and blue greens used. I want to take this moment to think about inspirations. Be ready to catch ideas as they fly by. You might jot them down in a notebook, draw them in a sketchbook, put them down in the notes on your phone. You know, an idea might be in the air. There could be different things happening that sort of bring this idea to life. The idea might visit you, but if you don't take the chance to use it, somebody else may. Here, watercolor by Chris O'Feely, a British artist living in Trinidad. We can see a marvelous portrait in profile. The eye seems to gaze downward toward the amazing outfit. So the head is in monochrome, one color, but the outfit is brightly colored, and the colors of the outfit seem to even seep up into the hairstyle, the neck of the figure. We can look at this work by Marlene Dumas and notice how it is entirely monochrome, a variety of values, some very casual brushstrokes that then coalesce into the features of a face. Observe that this is a rather large work. You can see the tiny signature of the artist at the bottom of the page. Observe that there is a recent interview with this artist on the podcast called A Brush With. And here is an installation of many works, a suite of works done by Dumas in a similar manner, installed in the Museum of Modern Art in New York. Lastly, I want to take a look at this piece called A Solitary Temple Amid Clearing Peaks, a little more than 1,000 years old, from China, a hanging scroll in ink with some color, from the Nelson Atkins Museum. We can see this temple. It's rather small, but it's just about centered in the composition. Unlike other subjects, it's not much obscured by trees or shadows or other forms. We actually notice that it is uh, presented to us with a light area behind. It's accentuated. Now, what's behind varies in values in lights and darks, but right behind the temple, it's light, sort of setting the temple up for us to notice it first and foremost. As we examine more of the image, we see that there are other buildings lower on the page, but these seem sort of short and squat as compared to the temple. Here's another image with higher contrast, the same work. We can see in the work that the mountains seem to be in a mist. The water is the color of the page. And the work, when we look to the lower half, seems to be describing a journey through space. There are people, and they look like they might be going up and toward the temple, though we can't clearly see the whole way there. Water, on the other hand, is coming down. And here's that high contrast image again. I just want to attract your attention finally to the figures at the bottom left. There's someone who seems to be on horseback and another person carrying a load. They look as though they're headed to the river bridge. And then we can follow the bridge and a path away from the river up the hill where we see another person carrying a load, showing us the way up, and the path curves again as if it might zig and zag, leading up to the temple somehow. We don't know exactly where. Meanwhile, the water is cascading down. So if you look to the bottom right, you see the water coming down, and then we look to the middle left. Remember, this is the bottom half of the picture. So at middle left, we see one waterfall, and we look up again, and there's another waterfall in the distance. Amazing.